So I can remember a bit of a while back, I was having this random discussion with a bunch of people, and we were all just kidding around, throwing banter here and there. And at some point, I can remember one of the shorties that was there was talking about how she wants a guy that will care for her and give her affection and good dick, and she wants a guy that can provide for her, and she wants that guy to be incredibly good looking and romantic and shit. And I can remember one of us, one of the niggas that I was with at the moment, all of a sudden coming out and saying, that's three different guys. And I can remember it became a bit of a debate because Shorty was saying that they should all be the same guy. And this guy is like, no, this is like three different niggas. And she was like, no, but that can all be one person. It's not like she's asking for that much. And it seemed like a pretty interesting debate that was going around. Then not so long after that, I see this, I think it was a meme or a tweet, where this one babe apparently has this one guy that she goes home to that's all sweet, cuddling, romantic, gives dick. And then there's another guy who pays the bills, who gives her guap and everything, make sure that she has money in her pockets and everything. And then there's another guy that she usually goes for events like weddings and family events. And the interesting thing is, all three of these guys actually believe that she is with them and only them. And it seemed particularly interesting, Yes, of course, it's cheating and that's basic. There's nothing too complex about that. But it does kind of show how babes can want a bunch of different things from one guy, and instead of getting some from one guy and allowing to compromise on the other, it's like there's a bunch of other guys that are offering the same exact thing, and shorty might actually go for them. And the interesting part is how they're all segmented. It's almost like when you have like three different salaries, and this one goes to savings, and this one is for enjoyment, and this one is for sorting out bills and shit. Like that one would make sense because you're getting like three different salaries. And if you have one salary, then you can split it into those three different things, which is, I think, what most people usually do, if at any point they actually do some form of financial planning. But when it comes to people, you find that for us guys, we usually kind of break it down into particularly simple things because our wife, our girlfriend, she's sort of like a one-stop shop for a lot of good things that are supposed to be long-lasting. If there's a side piece or there's a side chick, then there's a pretty good chance that they're just there for the fun times. Like, one is there for short-term pleasure and the other one is for long-term sustainability. Because there's a pretty good reason why your side chick isn't your wife, and it's not because you can't put a ring on it. Like, a lot of y'all could possibly do that, but you haven't done that because you know very well she's only good as a side chick. If you try to make her anything more than that, it's a potential myriad of problems. And if you don't want to take my word for it, Maurice Madeka, the sex therapist, actually says the same exact thing because he's one person that believes that the sex with the side chick is always going to be great because there's no love in it. Like, it's literally just the pleasure bits and there's no trying to be good or trying to care about blah, blah, blah. And it's literally just the fun, and that's what makes it great. And in a sense, it's a very simple way to sort of understand why some guys will have a side chick here and a girlfriend on this end. But shorties just took this shit to a whole new level. So you're finding that there's one guy that believes he's the boyfriend, or he's been told that he's the boyfriend and he's paying bills. There's another guy that believes that, he's the boyfriend, or they have something great going on that could turn into a relationship and he's just supplying dick, or he's just giving the emotional support and the comfort. And then there's this other guy who may occasionally supply dick, but he believes that, him and this shorty actually have some sort of a future, and he feels like he's a special one because she doesn't go for any one of these interesting functions where there's a lot of older folk around, not unless if he's with her. The rest of the time, she's usually like, I'm busy, or she comes up with some sort of an excuse and shit, and maybe they'll chill once or twice alone. But he feels that, there's a potential future for me and this shorty. And he feels like he's important to her, and she gives him top priority. And hell, sometimes it might even be four, because she might look towards another guy for actually supplying the higher quality dick. Like, it's mad. It's mad. And normally the question that babes usually ask guys, or at least the questions that a lot of babes ask me whenever I say that I talk about relationships, I feel like it's probably one of the most common ones. Why is it that guys cheat? Why can't you just stick to one woman? Then you kind of look at the state at which a lot of babes toy around with different guys, and you're like, why can't you stick to one man? Like, I can get that, yes, some of them might be good at some things versus others, but why can't you stick to one man? Then I kind of saw this interesting tweet on Twitter over the weekend. And it says, and I quote, "Dear men, in the dating market, women are indecisive. Women will want a financially stable man and later cheat on him with a romantic man. The romantic man will be cheated on with a tall, dark, and handsome man. Just better yourself, the right one will stay." End quote. And like, this sort of tweet kind of got me thinking about what it is that babes want in a guy. And in as much as, yes, I have spoken about, all of this in sort of cheating cases, I figured with some of them, it might not necessarily be a case of cheating, but just different stages in the cycles in which they'll be going to date different people. So you kind of think about it, it's not like every babe will cheat, but they usually will sort of have a pattern of the kind of guys that they're going for, depending on what kind of, I don't know if I can call it maturity or social development or some shit, that they are in, within their current life at the time. And if you break the guys down into like 3 main categories, it's very easy to kind of look at it and see where the babe kind of is. Because you look at, say, the bad boy, the rebel, the adrenaline junkie, most young babes will sort of run and gravitate towards those guys because those guys are the thrill seekers. And if anything, those guys are the ones that will go and approach these babes a lot more because they have the confidence. And even though they lose out, the fact that these guys take risks all the time means that their confidence level is most definitely going to be higher and they're probably going to be seen as more attractive. The only thing is, a lot of these guys might not necessarily give all that much to a relationship because if I can pull you easily and I can pull this other chick easily, then there's a pretty good chance that I might be gravitating from one shorty to another, to another, to another. And for some reason or the other, the guy might want to leave this relationship and go to the other right when the shorty is all in like lovey-dovey mode and she'll ask why and then it becomes drama. But this guy might just come back later on and he'll still get a chance and shit. And even in some cases, these guys will end up banging these babes and leaving them with a kid. And they definitely won't be the ones that will be coming back to provide. But interestingly enough, these guys actually tend to get quite a lot of babes when they're fairly young. That's when a lot of babes, when they're like teens, late teens, early 20s, that's probably where they'll gravitate if they don't end up with like number 3 on this category. Because the next one, which is number 2, is like the stable provider. And this sort of guy is usually the one that a lot of babes will sort of gravitate towards, especially when they start adulting and they realize that life isn't as nice as they might have thought it might have been. Jobs are harder to get by. The amount of money that you're paid by your employer probably does not suit all of the things that you'd want to do. And you start realizing that there's this shit called taxes that can really bite you in the ass. So what it is that you're being paid by your employer and what you actually get in the account is very, very different. And this guy will most definitely have a decent car, have a decent job, make some decent money. So he can take you out on a date or two. If you guys go to the club, he'll probably splash the money on the drinks or he'll be able to handle the drinks money. And if you guys are going out of town, he'll be the one to take you on a road trip with a bunch of people, or y'all can go on vacation together and he'll probably foot most, if not the entire bill. And this guy seems like he's a great catch. That time you feel like, you're more mature, you want a provider. And he probably seems like a great option. The only problem is, so do a lot of babes thinking the same exact thing about him. Because this guy isn't particularly common. Because there's not that many guys that make that much money. So as a result, all of these babes will probably want this guy. And some of these babes are actually willing to get a kid by this guy, not because the guy wanted it, but because she just wants to be provided for. Not because they want to be his wife or his girlfriend per se, but they just want him to be footing the bill. They want him to be handling the costs. They want to go on road trips and not have to pay for shit. They want to go to the club and not have to pay for drinks. So this guy ends up with a bunch of side chicks, not necessarily because he intended on having them from the beginning, but just because he does not know what having options is. He has never had to choose to stick to one babe over like a myriad of like 3, 4, 5, or 10. And that becomes a problem. And then once you realize as a girlfriend, you're busy losing your shit. You're like, oh, this guy cheats a lot, blah, blah, men are trash. And then you're like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm moving the fuck on. And then you're like, you know what? I don't want a guy who just pays for my bills. I want a guy that's just going to treat me right. Simple. It doesn't matter if this guy pays the bills or not. As long as he can do some level of provision and he's a cooperative guy and he doesn't treat you like shit, then you'll probably marry him. And I feel like that's usually the final stage. That's usually the last guy that a lot of babes usually end up settling with, which kind of does bring the whole premise of nice guys finishing last, because she's gone through the first bit of shit, then she thought she was mature and she went through this other shit as well. And since the guy will care about her and want to provide where he can, and he'll be protective and he'll treat her right, then he'll probably be the best option to settle down with. The only issue is, I don't think those guys are in great supply right now. And as a result, even though nice guys do finish last, we are sort of running short on genuinely nice guys and genuinely good and great guys. Because the ones that were sort of that way in the beginning and they got girlfriends, stuck with those girlfriends for years on end. And you won't expect them to divorce. And then the ones that are left are very few. And I don't even think the babes see them all that much, because they're so used to the lifestyle of the stable provider that they sort of end up sticking with a stable provider, because as long as he does the provision and as long as neither one of the two fuck each other up completely in one way or another, they can do pretty okay together. Nothing too earth shattering, nothing too great either, just okay. Although, then again, I might entirely be wrong about all of this, so I want your thoughts on this. I'd actually want to know what the babes think about this entire thing as well. On Twitter, it is at BagakaTheD. On Facebook and on Instagram, it is at Breaktime on Westside. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.